Now we see people are joining. Number of the people who are joining, it's increasing. So let me start. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, brave men and women, girls and boys. Good morning, Turkey. Good morning, the whole world. Today we have a special webinar, which is called People for 2030, UNDP Turkey organized dialogue dedicated to 75th anniversary of the United Nations. As you all know, or may know, Secretary General Mr. Antonio Guterres called the year of 2020 as a year of 75th anniversary of United Nations. And he was asking the global community, what do you think about our organization? What do you think about the United Nations? What do you think about the role of the member states? What do you think about the future we live? And how can we transform United Nations and overall all of our world to the better future, to prosperous and safe future? Today, in UNDP Turkey, we decided to organize, to support the initiative of Antonio Guterres and organize our dialogue. Thanks to many our colleagues from UNDP Turkey for their great support, facilitation, assistance with invitation, logistic, ICT connectivity. Of course, we prefer and we desire to have this conversation in a better place, to see face to face each other, to shake our hands, to hug each other. But unfortunately, in this desperate period of COVID-19, we all moved from kind of real life, to the virtual reality and online platform. So in this regard, today we have our online webinar with participation of a great fellows. I see who are sitting in front of me, in front of their computers, and they are here. So let me introduce them. We have today we have 5 panelists who will be representing different communities, different kind of the angles of society in Turkey, who have tremendous experience, who have tremendous interesting ideas, and they are here to share with them. So let me start with my colleague and great fellow, Mr. Nuri Özbağdatlı, who is UNDP Turkey Climate Change and Environment Portfolio Manager. Welcome, Nuri.
Hello, welcome. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
We have beautiful Bahar Toksoy Guidetti. She is the UNDP gender advocate, and she is the famous sportswoman in Turkey. Welcome, Bahar.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to make us share our opinions about our areas.
Great, thank you very much. So today we have Zeynep Sürmeli. She is the active participant of a very interesting and very innovative project in Turkey, so-called Turkish Engineering Girls. This is the community of those girls and women who decided to break the glass and move forward, to the areas which were usually, traditional men. Zeynep, welcome.
Thank you for inviting us. Yeah.
We also have Yousef El-Mostafa. He is a representative of the startup business. And nowadays how startup, online platforms, online innovation becoming much more important, relevant, and in time in our world. Yousef Bey, welcome.
Thank you very much. Nice to be with you.
And we also have the representative of a new generation. And I think what I will discuss, or maybe Yousef Bey will discuss, it will be about existing life, but those who will be running this world in the future, the people like Bahar, Zeynep, and Sena. So we have also Sena Hazmir. She is the representative of the Model UN. Model UN is an entity which is create the community of the school children, students at the university, who establishing the model of the United Nations of the future, and they're trying through the debates, through dialogue, to bring some new ideas and some new vision about United Nations. Sena, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Great. So I see that now we have more than 50 participants, and they are still joining us, you know, from the different angles, from the different part of Turkey and region and the world. So I would like to welcome all of our participants who joined this online. And now, before we will start our discussion, I would like to give a floor to my resident representative, Mr. Claudio Tomasi, who unfortunately is not able to participate in our today dialogue, but he was very actively involved in this conversation and preparation for this dialogue in advance. And he kind of shared his thoughts through the video. And I would like to ask my colleagues to switch this video, you know, to present his message. Over to you.
Good morning to everyone. Let me say, first of all, it's such a great pleasure to be here with you today for this dialogue in occasion of the 75th anniversary of the United Nations. What a better way to start this than by quoting how the Charter of the UN starts. I'm reading. We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war, which twice in our lifetime has brought untold sorrow to mankind, and to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human person, in the equal rights of men and women, and of nations large and small, and to establish conditions under which justice and respect for the obligations arising from treaties and other sources of international law can be maintained, and to promote social progress and better standards of life in larger freedom. And I stop the quote here. I wanted to start with this because the responsibility, the level of ambition, the vision of the generations that contributed to the drafting of this UN Charter 75 years ago, it was June 1945 when this was approved, in October, the 24th of October of 1945, when this was adopted by the General Assembly. This generation really had in mind a way, an international order, a setup in order to avoid for humanity to plunge into despair, destruction as before. Now we're sitting here, new generation, few generations after that, 75 years later. And we see that some of these issues are still very much relevant. Some of them have been witnessing great progress, and some new other challenges have come up as well. So when we look at the balance of this 75 years for humanity, it's really a mixed one. But if we want to see the half glass full, we can say that the strive for socioeconomic development has made great progress. If we look at the level of people living in hunger, living in poverty, this has been reduced dramatically. Same happens for the levels of health and education across the globe in so many different countries, and also the level of incomes, and so on and so forth. So we see incredible progress for humankind on average. However, when we look and we kind of break down the average, the situation is less rosy in a way, and some of these issues are still entrenched and persistent in our societies, north, south, west, and east. It's true, big progress has been made. However, today, in 2020, there are still people living and suffering from hunger. There's still poor people. These have not been eradicated. Even education is not totally universal for everyone. Human rights are not guaranteed across the globe. Democracies are not ruling countries around the world in their totality, just to give some example. On top of that, there are new challenges that to the generation that drafted and came up with this charter were not even imaginable. Let's imagine about the climate challenge, the climate threat. This was something in 1945 was not in the agenda. However, now, when we look at it and we know that by 2045, let's say when the UN will be 100 years old, if we keep going the speed we're going now and having the same production and consumption patterns, we will need 3 full planets in order to feed each one of us. Population have went from 2 billion, 2.5 billion at the time the UN was created, now to around 8 billion. This is a big difference. Many species are endangered. Climate change is producing more extreme climate events. The temperature is rising and is projecting to rise by 2, 3, 4 degrees according to what pattern of development we will keep pursuing. And this is just one example, the climate example as a new challenge. Another one is inequalities. Inequalities, they were there, they were present in 1945, but this has not been really fought against in a, let's say, sustainable and successful way. Inequalities are very much dominating the world right now. The 1% of the richest people owns the huge majority of assets and resources around the globe. Inequalities happens amongst countries, amongst people, within countries, within different classes, and within different segmentation of our society. Inequalities exist along the gender divide, racial divide, and so on and so forth. And this, of course, on top of being humanly unjust, also poses a serious threat in terms of possible conflict, in terms of uprising, in terms of stability. So inequalities is very much still an unsolved issue. A third one, just to mention a third one, is the displacement. Never, like now in the recent history of humanity, so many people have been on the move. More than 60 million people are currently on the move in the form of refugees or internally displaced people, people who have to leave everything behind, their life, their dignity, because of war, because of conflict, because of the fear of persecution. And then we can see that this is today and looking ahead a very serious challenge. So these were just to mention 3 new challenges that when we look ahead, we have to deal with. On top of that, we are discussing this in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, a COVID-19 pandemic that has completely turned upside down what our world was before. For the first time from the Second World War, actually, the GDP around the world is plummeting. The Human Development Index that since 1990, when it started being measured, constantly went up and up and up. For the first time, it will have an inflection. It will start going down in 2020. This means that this that started as a big health crisis quickly turned into a socio-economic crisis with no precedent that each single country around the globe has to deal with, and everybody is dealing with it differently. And this reminds us of the importance of the United Nations. It reminds us of the importance of sticking together, to discuss together, to come up with solutions together, because this is a challenge that no country alone can sort out. No individual alone can sort out. This is the typical example where multilateralism, where coordination, understanding, common strategies across the globe, across countries, across continents become a key issue if we want to come out of it, not like before, but better than before. And this is another point that I would like to share with you when we look at the COVID-19 and we think about the post-COVID-19. We're hearing a lot about back to normal situation. I would be more ambitious than that. I would be as ambitious as the people who wrote and contributed to the Charter in 1945. We have to look at a new situation that is better than before, because some of the trends that were with us before the COVID-19 were not conducive to a successful accomplishment of the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 or the 2030 agenda, because we are going in the wrong direction, getting away, getting further from that. So when we think about COVID-19, we also have to look at it in terms of, okay, let's think about our limitation. Let's think about what we got wrong and how we can improve that. In terms, for example, of green growth, green development, in terms of digital disruption and digitalization, what is the agenda of humanity of the future in this sense? But also in terms of gender, you know, women once again have been hit the most about this staying at home business that we are all involved here in Turkey and beyond across the globe. That is the truth. Small and medium enterprises have been hit very hard. So what does that mean? What can we do in order to foster and to improve better resilience for small enterprises and medium enterprises that represent the huge amount of employment created around the world? And so it gives a way for people to have a living, to raise their family, to raise their children. And so this is just some food for thought for you in this dialogue today, with the idea that you can discuss freely about what are the challenges ahead of us for the next 25 years. What has the humanity to come around to discuss about? And this will be an important input for the General Assembly in September, in 1 month time, when on the 21st of September, Secretary General will present the results of this global dialogue around United Nations 75th anniversary and the next 25 years of our organization. And the dialogue you're involved in, therefore, is important in the sense to make your voice heard, to participate, to get involved. Also, there is an online survey that has been spread out across the world to have millions and billions possibly of citizens to have an opinion and to express their opinions about the future of the UN. There is even artificial intelligence crowdsourcing, a kind of technology able to draw from the social media and from different walks of life conclusions and ideas about the next 25 years of the United Nations. All this together will possibly and hopefully give important inputs for our leaders when thinking about our future. To think out of the box, to think about challenges that need to be faced together, because never like before, the togetherness is needed. Countries must come together. People must come together. Men and women, young and old, because some of these challenges depend our life on this planet that we call Earth. Thanks to my career in the UN, I have been living in several countries. I had the opportunity to see so many aspects from cultures, people around the world. Nature is really amazing, the diversity, the beauty of our planet. How do we preserve that? How do we make sure that each one of us lives in a world free of freedom, free of deprivation, safer, more democratic, where our opinions are taken into account, where regardless of the color of our skin, our religion, our gender, we have a say. This might sound utopic, impossible, but I don't agree. Also in 1945, when the fathers of our fathers were writing down this charter, it seemed impossible. Yet many progress, so much progress has been achieved in the last 75 years. No new world war luckily has broken out. It's true. Many progress in all walks of life. Many challenges are still there. And now it's our responsibility, our generation, to discuss it and to relaunch, to be ambitious for the future and to work together to make it happen. So I really wish you very fruitful discussion, and I hope it will be able to inform the global agenda. Thank you very much for taking your time to participate to this. Your participation is important. Please speak freely and contribute to this important end. Goodbye.
Thank you, Claudio. Thank you, Claudio, for such a thoughtful message to all of us. Indeed, what Claudio said, we don't have a planet B and we don't have a plan B. So what we have right now is our Earth. So that is why all those problems, issues, challenges which we are facing, we need to tackle them jointly together. So that is why I like very much the slogan of the UN75, shaping our future together, not by elite, not by some kind of the conclave of the people, you know, but mainly, you know, with the billion men and women who are living across the globe in a very rich countries, in a very poor countries, in the countries which needs a lot of put a lot of efforts in order to bring those values of the United Nations Charter. And to be honest, UN Charter becoming one of the very important and critical book. For example, as we moved, you know, to electronic platform, I'm always having with myself this charter of the United Nations with me, and it's always giving us some guidance when you are getting lost about what you should say, what you should do, how you should set up those actions or those initiatives that you deem necessary for the future of our world. So I would like to organize our dialogue today around the issues or the topics which our resident representative Claudio Tomasi put it as a climate change, as about migration, as about impact of COVID-19, is about the increasing the inequality across the globe. So in this sense, I would like to start my first question, and I would like to ask Bahar. Bahar, can you please tell us, what do you think? What kind of a world do we want to create? What kind of the world do we want to live in 25 years, let's say? I don't want, you know, to move too far of this one, you know. Please, floor is yours.
Thank you. As a professional athlete, financially independent young woman, and a mother of 4 years old, I want to live in a safe and fair world for every human being on this planet. The world would have been such a place only if politics, business, sport, and art become more gender balanced. Gender equality is a necessary foundation for a peaceful and sustainable world. So until women are represented in decision-making, the world will never be safe and fair for all. By denying the equal rights for women, we deny half of the population a chance to live life at its fullest. Inequality is a tremendous waste of the gross human potential. So political, economic, and social equality will benefit not only women, but all the world's citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bahar. I think, you know, it's critically important to live in the environment which is safe, which is free of fear, and unfortunately, not all part of our world are kind of the creating this atmosphere or this environment. So my next question is to Sena, because Sena is the absolutely right person who will be running this conversation in 25 years when we will be celebrating the 100 years of the United Nations. So my question to you, Sena, what kind of a world will we have in 2050 if current global trends continue? When I'm saying about the current global trends, I mean about global environment issue, about warming the planet's temperature. It's about the displacement and forced migration. It's about, as we said, increasing the inequalities and kind of the time of shaping or kind of testing the traditional way of globalism and multilateralism. So I want to hear about this one, please.
Well, it's a little bit tricky to answer because like what we guess about the future might not always come off as directional progression, but I'm going to do my best to predict with the cues that we have on the current threats that are said to be true. So like as far as the environment is concerned, I'm afraid that because we're not filtering the drains soon enough, we'll have less diversity in terms of ecosystem. And because we're not currently limiting the carbon emission in the right amounts, we might even have to use special equipment to even accomplish the basic function of breathing. And like, again, because we're not using scientifically proven alternatives of CFC, the ozone layer might take an irreversible turn in which we won't be able to replace it. And as you just mentioned, because of the depletion of the ozone layer, we're going to have to face warmer times in which we're going to face significant challenges and disruptive changes in both farming, eating habits, and even physiological changes in our body too. Like, that's a pretty significant challenge that we're going to have to face if the current trends are set to continue. But then there are also economic challenges, right? What we face right now is that with the exponential growth of corporations and monopolies, the gap between rich and poor will merely increase. And if we don't do something about it, the ones that are in the mediocre wage are going to be affected the most. But I think I'm hopeful in a sense that there's a shift in the mentality that we're raised with. And like, there is this whole new generation raised with the fundamental idea that we only have one word and no substitute, and we have to protect it no matter the cost. And like, we have to acknowledge what is laid ahead of us, even if it's drought, famine, or pandemic. And like, what we have seen as the human race, we're not capable of handling fast-spreading massive disasters. And if we don't act now, we will have to take a step toward a more sustainable future. But I think what we have right now is a passion. It's like a passion to speak when injustice. It's a passion to correct when at fault. And like, we have the desire to innovate when we're in need. So I think that's what makes me hopeful in overall.
Thank you, Sena Gül. This is exactly, I think, what the vast of the majority of our population across the globe are thinking and worrying. And of course, when we are talking about climate change, it's exactly also impacting, you know, the most precious part of this one, about the biodiversity. And I think that what we see in that on annual basis, how many species they are disappearing, we cannot kind of absorb it, you know, to understand better. But this is kind of the tremendous tragedy that in the future, I mean, in 50, 100 years, our next generation, our children, grandchildren, they will be learning not from this kind of the physical vision, but, you know, through this kind of the virtual reality of what was there. One thing I would like to also highlight is about the CO emission, as you mentioned, that we noticed that during the lockdown in many countries due to COVID pandemic, the air index in many countries has significantly improved, which means that everything we are talking about is about man-made products, I mean the human-made products. So that is why if we will be very rational in this regard and see how can we tackle this issue responsibly and as a kind of the common compact with all participants in our society, of course we will be reaching much more and much more rational and much more beneficial results. I would like to thanks, and I would like to come back again, you know, to Bahar. Based on what you said, Bahar, and both what you have, we've learned from Sena Gül. So here is my idea that, and I would like to hear from you, Zoe. How can we collectively bridge the gap between the world we hope for and what we have right now? How can we manage those trends better? You know, how can we establish that, you know, because I know that those issues, they will not be sorted out in one day or even in 1 year. How can we bridge this gap? Please.
I think we need to make gender equality a top priority, because inequality is not getting less. It's a big illusion. Yes, gender roles are different than past. Yes, income gaps have narrowed, but males still have greater social power. Women still earn less than men, and violence against women still exists. The problem is not that life is unfair. It is our deep belief that inequality is a part of modern humanity. We are biologically very diverse and we are not equal in the sense of specific traits and abilities, but that doesn't mean that we don't deserve equal opportunities in life. In terms of bridging the gap, as a professional athlete, I can suggest to use sport because it has a unique power to merge people all around the world since ancient times. And volleyball stands out as a gender-balanced sport, most gender-balanced sport. And it's a great role model to all other sports. One might think that female athletes who are successful in the male-dominant sports like soccer, basketball, or boxing are more inspiring. But I believe volleyball is much more stronger medium for gender equality because successful female athletes of male-dominant sports are usually seen as exceptions. But in volleyball, there is no exceptions. Volleyball is gender balanced in terms of athletes, events, and fans. And the entire volleyball community is champions women. So if we can build a bridge between volleyball and other sports in terms of gender equality, that would represent a great example for the rest of the world, I believe.
Bahar, thank you very much, because what you said, it's absolutely, something that we take into consideration for our future, that reducing inequality is specifically not about the poor and rich or others, It's of course, first of all, about our men and women, and gender inequality and gender empowerment should be a slogan, and it should be the truly bridge. So I appreciate that you have highlighted this one.
Thank you.
I would like to shift a bit to other sides. It's about what Claudio mentioned. It's about COVID-19 pandemic and its severe impact for socio-economic life, for socio-economic stability of the world. And it is indeed a truth that since 1990, this is the first time that globally there is a decrease in Human Development Index. As you may know, Human Development Index is an instrument developed by the United Nations Development Program, which is evaluating number of the criteria countries by country with economic, social, cultural, education, health, and etc. And of course, the impact for Turkey was also quite significant. The recent survey made by the business community through the Business for Goals platform have shown the severe impact to the small and medium enterprises. And in this regard, my question to Yousef, what do you think the international community should prioritize to recover better from COVID-19 pandemic? I'm just asking you because you are representing the huge community of small and medium enterprise in Turkey. So please, floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Of course, Corona virus affected every single thing. I mean, person all over the world, as you think. I mean, GDP much less than before when we talk about growth. And of course, automatically unemployment, both unemployment and poverty, in addition to equality, will be affected dramatically. And of course, small businesses and micro business, we can say they are affected, especially when they are linked to the world. I mean, export and import. However, in spite of this, of course, there are some positive things about coronavirus from another aspect or point of view. We have less, for instance, violence, given that I am a Syrian refugee based in Turkey, and I was born as an internal displaced person in Syria, so I know that this is good. The priorities, I think, first, I mean, all countries should work hand in hand with each other, and now they have one enemy. I mean, they are not against each other. And again, as I said, violence between different countries. If we talk about Syria, we talk about Libya, about Yemen, much less than before. And part of this, thanks to Corona, because the world as a whole is busy with something different, which is the common enemy, as I said. So collaborate. They need to collaborate much more. They need to allocate much more money to some basic things, like when we talk about health systems, for instance, we saw that they collapsed in many countries, even, I mean, advanced countries. So they need to work on health systems or systems of the basic services they provide to their work. They need to work to deal with each other as a human being first, before business, before profit, before etc. So this is another point they need to think about it. They need to stop war against each other. And when we stop war against each other, this means that we save a lot of money. I mean, budgets for, I mean, war, for arms, military expenses, etc. should be turned towards something useful for each country and for the world as a whole. They need also not to waste resources in things when they fight against each other. So to conclude, priorities should be focused on just to deal with Corona as one enemy, and enemy against all countries. They need to rethink about their budgets, how they allocate them, to allocate them for something useful for their, not only for the citizens and nations, but for other countries also, because I mean, in developing countries, they suffer much more than others. And we see that how coronavirus moves from one place to another. So it is not, you are not immune from what's going on in other countries. So they need to support and increase maybe support or development aid to developing countries. And they need to invest more in systems when we talk about health systems and also maybe education systems. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Yousef, for your sharing the thought about pandemic, and how can we recover. I fully agree that all countries, all communities should act as one, hand in hand. And I think, this is something that should be kind of the red ribbon pass through all of our initiatives and our strategies, because I think that pandemic has shown that it has nothing kind of during to segregation for the race, nation, financial sustainability, and etc. We all were affected as a human. So I think that in this regard, when we discussing about the recovery, we need to think about this one. I also agree that financial resources, in this limited ability of having financial resources, we have to be very efficient to do more with the less, and make sure that those financial resources we have used effectively and efficiently. So I totally agree with you. But let me also change, a little bit beyond this one, because I know that as you are representing the startup, pandemic has unfolded a lot of enormous opportunity for online life. I mean, the reason why I'm saying life, because it's not specifically about online business, it's about online education, telemedicine, culture, even sport. I know that in Turkey, starting to growing up the new federation of esports, and I think this is something very remarkable. And of course, it enormously unfolding the opportunities for globalization from the different angle, because when we are talking and we are dealing, with the colleagues from other continents, we don't need to take a visa to go through procedures and etc. So in this regard, my question to Zeynep, you are representing the Engineering Girls project. What do you think about the impact of the pandemic? Can we use as a kind of young generation this as an opportunity to boost up some of the areas of business, areas of think that we never thought, or maybe thought that it's fantastic to do? Please.
Yeah, of course, innovation is important in this area. COVID is a disease outbreak that we didn't expect currently. And we should work for improving technology and fostering people with new technologies and giving them the tools that they need for fighting against these kind of difficulties. So it's important to make collaborations and to prepare the environment for the right policies.
Indeed. Indeed, thank you, Zeynep. Indeed, I think technology becoming much more critical and important in the core. So that is why, as a representative of UNDP Turkey, I'm very proud that we jointly with the government of Turkey promoting several initiatives like organized industrial zone. Now we are thinking about the green organized industrial zone when we would like to promote the circular economy. And I think the future is about lean production, lean economies, that we will be very careful in terms of production, but also we have to see the environment impact, because the recent information or the news, we saw that the pandemic has also put us in a different angle in terms of waste management, and they're showing that the ocean pollution started, you know, to take more with gloves, with masks, and of course, you know, they are also giving, you know, some negative impact. I was asking the question, and I was discussing with the people who are outside of the United Nations, and let me give a floor to the person who is in United Nations and working for the United Nations Development Program. Nuri, I would like to ask you a question. What do you most want to see in the, I mean, by 2050, when the UN will turn to its 100 years anniversary? I mean, of course, you know, in relation to those megatrends of the climate change, inequality, gender inequality, I mean, pandemic, the impact of environment to new political and social trends, because Yousef has correctly mentioned about war, but the recent research and analysis showing that lack of access to the basic resources like water and the soil in the future will be another trend, you know, which brings, you know, to the local conflict or the biggest conflict. So from this perspective, being the UN staff member, being the person who is dealing and promoting UN values and the principles, what do you think, you know, how you would like to see the future of our organization? Please.
Thank you, Sukhrob. And actually, the question is really very dimensional. And firstly, we need to face that the current system is not good for sustainability. It can be defined by vulnerabilities, inequality, and unsustainability. And currently, we are living in an environment that neither sustainable, environmentally sustainable, nor socially just and inclusive, or nor economically resilient. And what I really would like to see 25 years later, it is mainly about the pattern is all these problems, this pattern is about inequality, economical inequality, social inequality, environmental inequality. And we live in a natural system, and we created a human system. And the currently human system, the way of doing, the definition of success, definition of development is just looking for the quantity, but not the quality. And from now on through the future, I really would like to see a new relationship between society and nature, a new identification, a new definition of development. And here we can see the trends, as you highlighted, due to COVID. And here I would like to highlight also the positive side of this experience we face with COVID. First off is really the feminist leadership. The people, countries who deal with COVID, handled it in a more successful way are women. And feminist leadership is coming with a more appreciation of diversity and try to shift the inequality to the diversity and collectiveness. And when I take it with the natural systems, I see that the nature has a capacity of renovation itself. It's a capacity of regeneration itself, but only if we give the chance as human system. And I can give several ideas for making this possible. Like we are talking now in 2020 that we do not give any subsidies for fossil fuels. We cannot give any investment and banking choices for projects that is irreversibly affecting biodiversity. Because the crisis we are facing is actually an irreversible and existential crisis. So the thing that we do as human being, as one individual, related to with its society and related with the intergenerational and international and interlinked system, needs to be more open for making people creating their own choices. And this can be happened by every person as an opportunity. And I would like to highlight that every people as an agent of change need to demand their change. And this demand needs to be acknowledged by the people in power. And it is very interesting that the people in power are few, but the powerless people are many. So I really would like to see UN and UNDP, and as a working for UNDP, I can see every day the opportunities for that, how to making this environment more sustainable and making this society more just and inclusive and making the economy more resilient. And if we can shift from vulnerable, inequal, and unsustainable system to more holistic understanding, talking each other, and taking care for the other, then I believe we can make it possible. And I will not give any figure or fact about the loss of biodiversity or climate change, but I would like to highlight that the loss of biodiversity and the current status we have with the climate change is because of inequality. It's not because of lack of finance, it's not because of lack of technology, but inequality. So I would like to see a world from now on 25 years, more young people, more women taking decision linked with the nature and linked with the human system and nature system together. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Nuri. Very prompt and very, I mean, straight to the point, these kind of thoughts you have shared. And I fully agree with you that we were always talking about life after the pandemic. And of course, you know, when we are talking about the life after the pandemic, it will impact or it will be influence, you know, with other institution or with other streams. And in this regard, I totally agree with you that the new definition of development will be reconsidered, because the old or the current system of the development, when we are talking about only financial impact but not about technological transfer, if we are not talking about some instrument that will be bringing, you know, to the prosperous future in certain areas or in the certain countries, of course, you know, it will not be sustainable. That is why I really welcome the idea, which is right now is promoting within United Nations human High Commissioner for Refugees issues, that they are going, you know, from the refugee point two agenda, meaning that instead of providing humanitarian aid or humanitarian assistance to refugees and those who are forced displacement, creating them enabling environment for them to make income generation by themselves, to be not reliable on the other sources, but mainly for themselves, because in the influx of these huge in Syria crisis and those who are 4 million living in Turkey, Syrian refugees, let's say people under temporary protection. I would like to say that I saw that thousands and thousands talented people, engineers, teachers, professors, doctors, you know, and of course all of those potential should be streamlined, and of course, you know, it should be reverted, you know, to something very tangible, and all of those people are also happy with this one. So we have talk about these ideas, but nevertheless, when we are talking about the issues, but of course, you know, there are a number of the obstacles. Some of them are political, some of them economic, some of them are legal. So in this regard, I would like to ask my question to Zeynep. From your perspective of a young engineer, the person who is wanted to change the world, you know, what are the main obstacles and challenges that will block this vision, the vision of reducing inequality, tackling the climate issues, and of course, you know, promoting gender equality and the gender empowerment? What are the main obstacles from your generation of 20 years old, 30 years old people, please?
I think barriers can result from unawareness, as we also observe now from the irresponsible behavior of people towards the pandemic precautions. Unfortunately, convincing people to take initiative is the hardest and most important stage of coping with a problem. Besides, keeping actions only at the global level may cause them to stay superficial, which disables authorities to touch the right target populations. Last but not least, the lack of capital can block the vision of developments. This may stem from the absence of private sector participation. It is important to address the upcoming difficulties that humanity can face proactively. Of course, there are more problems that people deal with. The best thing we can do is to prioritize the actions based on their urgency and their importance level.
Thank you very much. And in this regard, since we are talking about those obstacles, could be, you know, national or international, I think the issue could be about the role of the UN. So my question is to Sena, that she is representing the model UN, and of course, you know, they are designing and testing, you know, different variation of the United Nations in the future. So how, from your perspective, how UN can address those challenges, and how can we, if we are talking about the future UN, we should do this differently, or you will do differently rather than what we do today? Please.
Okay, thank you. So for my understanding, UN has like many facilities that can endorse research, support NGOs and private sectors, and eventually channel their fundings into cases where the urgency claims it, right? Like it's an entity whose very presence is actually deemed to establish peace and prevent undesirable conditions for any part of the world, actually, by which I mean help end poverty, hunger, save the planet from degradation. But I think one way that UN can actually accomplish this goal is by start working for the people and not just governments or political figures. We need to weight the politics-centered governance toward an institutional body that like prioritizes humanitarian access, but with a substantial commitment. And by gathering more representation from around the world, the UN can actually increase diversity and can help people have their voices heard, and like not just those Western countries. That eventually entails a balanced power and a reformed decentralized structure, perhaps even including the veto power, which would dilute the authority of those that deny humanitarian access in the Middle East, even just for the sake of politics.
Thank you. And indeed, I like the vision about human-centered world, because I think that it should be less of influence, less of interest, but mainly, you know, about the human-centric, that, you know, the core values of the global community should be human-centered. From my agenda, I have already finished all of my questions, and I would like to now open the floor for Q&A. And for the Q&A, we have number of the question. And let me start with very interesting, from my perspective, question that we are the citizens of the respective countries. Are we voters? We are consumers. We make choices every day. So, in this regard, are we aware of the power that we have as ordinary individuals of this planet to change the world? In other words, I think the participant who is asking the question is specifically meaning that, you know, what is the power of individuals when we are getting together, you know, through the social media. You see the famous recent protest movement, which was Yellow Vest in France and Europe, and then, you know, Black Lives Matter. You know, it means that, you know, one individuals, you know, get together, get touch with others, you know, and it creates, you know, enormous power of those who are really pushing for the change, who are really pushing for the different. Who is ready, you know, to answer for this question?
Yes, I think every individual, males and females, regardless their background, they have power. Like the client, when you have money in your pocket, you have purchasing power and you can affect the market. This is true in the business. When it comes to, let's say, the political aspect or social or cultural aspect, this depends on the country where this individual lives. In some countries, you are allowed to use this power. In some countries, you can regulate. I mean, you can organize your power to be added to other people's powers, and then you can reflect this at the country level. I mean, then through your country, I mean, you can affect the world. This is the only thing. But power of people differs or varies across countries and times as well. Depends on the level of development. Depends on the level of democracy as well. The context does affect. I mean. Then the impact should go through the country level. I mean, the country regime, for instance, and systems and regulations, etc. And then after that, through this, they can affect the world as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Yousef. Thank you, Yousef. My next question, I think it's addressed to Nuri. On climate change, we have now all the data and evidences that is happening, but let me see. But it's so far not enough political or economic will to make the changes needed. How views civil society, financial institution to bring to the required changes to mitigate the effects of the climate change and move to a much more sustainable development model? Any suggestion or examples? And it's also kind of echoes to the previous question asked by my colleague Semiha, that I see a lot of ideas, but how can we materialize? What sort of initiative should be in order to push for those materialization? Over to you, Nuri.
Thank you. Great questions, and I can give really good examples, and even beyond the suggestions, there are good examples on the ground. It is from all over the world, but I can give some examples from Turkey, where there are NGOs and communities working together against the pesticides for food, and they success this, and they make the Ministry of Agriculture to forbidden some of the pesticides while they are producing the agricultural production. And there are also good examples where the women fisheries NGOs, they make great job in terms of the sustainable fishing and also increasing the role of women in the aquaculture and fisheries. But all these great examples has a pattern that these people are working together with a vision. And this vision is important to put on the agenda. And it's also related to the first question that as an agent of change, every people, everybody, every individual has power, but as UNDP, as UN, we need to increase their impact, and we need to give opportunities for those people. And I totally agree that we do not need to talk about evidences and data and everything anymore. We need to talk about how to involve young people, how to involve SMEs, how to involve the economies through this change, this transformational change. And I think also Semiha's question about the loss of ideas, but because of loss of problems, and how we can try to identify the integrated solutions where UNDP is also stand for, and how we can make a city with less carbon dioxide emissions, but also zero violence to women, but also resilient to the floods, while also increasing the social and economical life for young people, and also securing the life for the newborn children. We don't want the newborn children die because of the air quality. And we had just in China last year, 5 million young newborn children died because of the air quality. So we can have lots of examples from different scale, from local level, national level, international level. But the obstacle is that we cannot give the possible opportunity to increase these impacts to young people, to powerless economies, SMEs, and also the education, where I need to highlight that Bahar also mentioned about this, I think, art and culture. We need to always hear the art and culture, because art always show us the things that we cannot hear and things that we cannot see right now, but the future. And we can include this to our development agenda. We can empower the societies and see the change, where a change starts from an individual level through the societal level, through a transformational idea. So my answer would be that in a short time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Nuri, for your comprehensive answer. So I recall Bahar was saying about art, culture, and sport. So in this regard, there is a question here that regarding women roles and empowerment in societies, how sport and art can help changing mindset and social norms at scale. Any example? Bahar, please.
Thank you. Gender inequality is deeply rooted in many of us, and even we don't recognize it. It's defended and supported even by who it damages, women. I think that's the most important part that we miss. Women, even well-educated, most successful, economically free ones, don't recognize inequality. I know many women athletes who claim they have never faced gender inequality. It's because they cannot define it. And they grew up with some gender roles, so inequality seems normal for them. I propose we should not only focus on empowering women, but we should also focus on empowered women. But we need to wake them up, make them understand the scope of the problem, and fight for each other.
Thank you. But coming back to this point, any example when sport was kind of the advocating, because I know that you are our gender advocate, but specifically in sport, and you are a representative of athletes of Turkey, you know, any example when these kind of through the sport, you delivered the message that was fully engaged and then supported by the fans and the others?
Actually, I can say that inspiring the young people with our success is not enough. We have to make an action. So while I was thinking about it, I created an academy, volleyball academy, that I can teach volleyball. It's easy for me, but I wanted to go further this, and I wanted to tell that kids to girls that they can be whatever they want. So basically, as an example, I used sport to tell girls that and empower them and teach them how to go over barriers that will come in front of them in their life. I try to use sport as a step to go find a solution for these girls, basically.
Thank you. Thank you. And the next question, again, to Nuri. The question is that, Nuri, in which sectoral or thematic areas, agriculture, fishery, food, healthy, energy, ecosystem, should be the most active actors or decision makers for women in fighting against climate change in terms of mitigation, adaptation, both within the UN community? So where do you see the very essential role of the women?
Mm-hmm. Actually, I'm very happy Nuran raising this, and for the people who doesn't know, Nuran is one of the women advocates and decision makers and technocrat and bureaucrat on climate change agenda. So it's a very good example for the young women, also for the young people who would like to deal with climate change. And the answer of the question, I believe, hidden with the word of the involvement and the word of the being an active actor. So it means that I would not choose any sector like agriculture or fishery or this and that, because in every sector, in every action that we take, regardless from the sector and the scale and the processes, there should be a voice raised by all actors, and women is one of the most vulnerable because of the climate change, regardless from sector and scale and the region. So within the UN community, I would highlight that women should be more, as I give an example on the COVID fight of the countries. There is we call feminist leadership. And I believe in UN community, there should be more women taking decisions, but not only for climate change, but for all decision-making processes. And thanks to UN and UNDP, we have a gender seal program. And within gender seal program, we are learning lots of about the gender equality, gender inequality, and link it to our daily work, to our project work, to our policy-making work. And we are very happy to use the gender seal and share this gender seal knowledge with all the communities and the organizations. And we already started some trainings and some meetings how to empower women in climate change agenda, coming from national communication process through the vulnerability assessment process. And it was a very good opportunity to highlight this gender seal and highlight that climate change and UN community needs more women leadership. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nuri. And I fully agree and I fully subscribe for the point you made about the active role or active involvement of women to all sectors of our, not specifically environment, but all of our life, economy, social, cultural, sport, art. And that is why when we see about this one, it always comes to my mind about these sustainable development goals. And in those 17 goals of the sustainable development, which was the global compact of all member states, 194 countries and territories across the globe, and all of them are committed about active involvement for all processes and making sure that the women's voices are heard, you know. But I would like to go beyond this one. It should not be women voices are heard. It meaning that, you know, women voices is a women voices heard by men. No, I think that, you know, the women voice, you know, it's equal, you know, to the men and children. So in this regard, I think we need to move forward and started to think it's in a much more way, because from my perspective, when we are talking about gender inequality, is about unused opportunities, unused potential that could create much more beneficial, interesting, creative, absolutely different. So if we will go through this one, then of course, you know, it would be much more interesting. Even if we are talking about the very simple thing, design of the house or design of the apartment. Look at this from beautiful women perspective and this brutal black and white, you know, men perspective. So I think that diversity in this regard, it's critically important. So yes,
Sukhrob, just to highlight that, I also highlight that as a man trying to giving an answer to this woman empowerment will be always lack. So there are really young women and lots of active actors, and I know that they know better answer than me. But we as UNDP always try to create the equal opportunities and options to make this realized. Thank you.
Very relevant point. Thank you very much. Our dear panelists and our dear participants, since we are coming to the end, we have 10-15 minutes more. I would like to just kind of summarize it, and touch upon from each angle of those panelists and you participating here. So I prepared my question, but now I received another question from Rushen, the participant of today's webinar, and I found it very good and remarkable to wrap up, and say as a kind of the final word that we will be delivered to UN75 Secretariat. So his question to all 6 of our panelists: if you will be given the opportunity to speak at the UN General Assembly in September, what would you say to the world leaders? What would be your message to the entire human community? Just a couple of points, 2 minutes each, Let's assume that we are those 60 participants and panelists. We are sitting, in the UN General Assembly. What message would you like to deliver? What would you like to say to all of them? So who will take the lead in this regard? Yousef, please.
Ladies first.
Ladies first. Okay, I like it.
Yes, in fact, I think it's a very important point when we talk about equality, when we talk about gender balance, we talk about men and women, we talk about power of people, power of individuals, etc. I think in the UN system, maybe given that it was established decades ago, maybe also we need to talk to all leaders and think about how we can reform our system. Our system was established decades ago, and given that there are many things, many changes, sometimes dramatic changes. If we talk about Corona, for instance, now, I mean, a lot of it changes after Corona. The world will be different from before Corona. So my message will be, let's think about how we can reform our system, how we can reform the UN apparatus itself, and we can be fair, we can be equal within the system itself, because we talk about at the government or countries level. Let's give votes, equal votes to all representatives, to all countries. So we don't have veto, we don't have one country that can stop, can say no to all over the world in case they have just one interest, because all these powers, including superpowers, they are part of the system itself. And when we have, imagine that in Turkey, for instance, or any other country, we have people whose votes bigger than others, who can affect the process more than others. It will be not that fair for all others. So just this is my message, to be fair at the UN system itself. All countries have the same weight of votes, and even if it comes to the council, not just 5 countries, any of them, they can say no to the rest of all of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yousef. A very strong message and very good point. Thank you. So who is next?
I can talk.
Zeynep. Please.
I think sustainability is the most important component of strategies. That is why UNDP Turkey and Limak Foundation launched Engineer Girls of Turkey project in cooperation with the Ministry of Family, Labor and Social Services. The main idea was developing a support program to promote female students to participate in engineering professions more. They prepare personal development programs for both female university and high school students for advancing their skills, knowledge, and performance. These include mentorship, professional coaching, which I utilized so much in my university years, internship opportunities, leadership certificate programs, which I also took twice, and English courses in addition to scholarship they provide students from disadvantaged families with. It is so comforting to know that they know the importance of raising awareness among young people as early as possible. Hence, the high school program was launched in 2018, immediately after a one-year pilot. On the other hand, the university program has been held for the last 5 years successfully. In the long run, it is anticipated to observe increase in the high quality employment of women in the significant services and manufacturing industries that would in turn provide sustainability as I start my speech, and improvement in the inclusiveness of economic growth. In the future, hopefully, we will not be talking about the gender inequalities, but there are more important vital issues like femicides and disease outbreaks as the current hot topics. So I desire that we will have overcome these issues and be discussing how to improve technology and foster the welfare of societies. I'm in favor of an environment where people understand the dignity of being a human in a real manner, which comes along with the understanding and respect shown by each person. This would solve many problems regarding the health, earth, socio-economic status and security, and whatever you can think of. Because as humans, we are the ones that would find the answers for our questions and take actions towards getting rid of our problems. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Zeynep, for your message and for focusing on the issues which you think are quite important for the next generation. Sena, please.
I can go. Well, I would make a few remarks about the things that we just talked about. The first one would be the mentality that we have. I would probably say that we're not physically, not mentally, and not capitally ready for any massive disasters, and we should get prepared for whatever that comes next after Corona, because if we're not prepared and if we're sharing the same world, and well, if a miracle doesn't happen and we don't find another globe to live in, then we're going to be here for a very long time, and we have to figure out a way to sustainably develop and find a way to nurture together. But then I'll also talk about the equal representation, which might actually help us foster our main causality. And I would also say, like, we don't have to just hear. We have to listen what they're saying. We have to listen what people that believe in other beliefs have in common, like what we have to do as in practice.
Thank you very much, Sena. Bahar.
I would say to achieve gender equality, most of the time we focus on girls and women, how to inspire, encourage, or empower them. I think there are two critical points. I mean, I will repeat myself, but I think it's important point. First of all, gender inequality is deeply rooted in many of us that we don't even recognize it. And like I said, I know many athletes who claim they have never faced inequality just because they cannot define it. So we should not only focus on empowering women, but also focus on empowered women. We need to wake them up. We need to make them understand the scope of the problem and fight for each other. The second issue is gender inequality is not just women's issue. How do we solve a conflict between two parties if one of them doesn't believe there's a problem? Engaging boys, men, and their parents is much more critical to solve the problem. Gender inequality happens because of them, and gender equality cannot happen without men. We need to inspire, encourage, and empower boys to fight for a fair world. We need to put our effort on educating their parents, because home is the first place where children are socialized into gender norms, values, and stereotypes. Father of the girls need to understand that their daughter's education should include leadership, innovation, STEAM, global citizenship, and art, and gender equality. And parents of boys need to understand that gender equality is necessary foundation for peaceful world, and they need to raise their children accordingly. So my suggestion to United Nations is to focus on these two critical issues on the next 25 years.
Thank you, Bahar. Thank you very much. Nuri, please.
Inequality, age of inequality and capitalism is over. We are talking about a new system. And we need to give power to people and take people to nature. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nuri. We heard all of your points, starting with structural reform and the mechanism of decision making, which Yousef has mentioned. Then moving to the future of inequality that should be reduced. We heard from Bahar. Then coming, to the environmental issue and making sure that all of them will be overcome. Of course, the issues we have raised today, they are really, really difficult. Some of them even difficult to understand, and making sure you know how to establish the mechanism. But what I really like through today's dialogue is that we are thinking. We started, to think around this one, because to be honest, after 1945, the world, when we see it through the social media, through the traditional media, is becoming really, really dangerous. But in fact, according to statistic data and all of those empirical research, the situation is absolutely vice versa, because there is no a global pandemic which was recurrent. I'm not talking about the COVID, and I hope that in a very near future we will all be getting through the vaccine and the vaccination. The world became much more safer in terms of number of the people who involved into the conflict, and they are dying because of the conflict, because of the starvation, because of the significant inequality. I remember when MDG was developed, Millennium Development Goals, the targets were much more different rather than, the target of the Sustainable Development Goals, because there we were talking about extreme poverty, and nowadays we are talking about the poverty. But the impact of the pandemic, which affected, the social and economic life, of course, it will be also putting us in a very difficult situation in terms of implementation of SDG. But what I truly believe, as a human, as a father, as a husband, as a friend, as a fellow, as a colleague, as a member of the United Nations, is that we should intensify those conversations. We have to talk to the people. We have to always share our view through the social media, through the researchers, participation meeting, online conferences, webinars, many others. I see message from Allah, who is the coordinator of our today event, that I also would like to strongly encourage you to participate in UN75 survey. She will share the link to this survey right now. It will not take more than 3-4 minutes of your time, but of course, again, it will be accumulated. And as Claudio said, through the artificial intellect, through the machine learning mechanism, this will be fully analyzed, absorbed, and then, prepared as a kind of the bullet point actions that all country offices should review, discuss, and then making, some final decision. But what I enjoyed today with your participation, thank you very much. You brought a lot of experience, a lot of vision from the different angles of our community, and you have shared those issues, those problems, those concerns that you heard from your friends, colleagues, relatives, partners, and so on. So I wish you very good luck. And before we will wrap up, I would like to give a floor. Okay, 23, 1 minute to each of you, maximum, to tell what you say as a kind of the final last minute message that you would like to deliver. Over. So I see you said what you already said, and nothing else. Once again, I would like to thank all of our panelists for your super participation. I personally truly enjoyed with this conversation and the issues you have raised. I wish you all the best. I wish you good luck. And all of those materials, all of those feedback we received today will be summarized and with great support of my colleague will be delivered to the Secretariat of the UN75. Once again, thank you very much. Today we had a UNDP People for 2030 Task Force in Turkey dialogue about UN75, the Shaping Our Future Together dialogue we had. And today we had an excellent team of panelists, Sena from Model UN, Yousef from Startup, Bahar, our UNDP gender advocate, athlete from Volleyball Federation, Zeynep, Turkish engineering girl, and my colleague and great fellow, Nuri, portfolio manager from UNDP. Thank you very much, Allah, for your coordination and logistics support. We are stopping now our dialogue. I wish you very best and hope to see you in a different webinars and in different platforms. Bye.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a nice day.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.